So my name's Johan, and my surname's pronounced Swanepoel. I've heard Swanepoel today. So, as mentioned, look, I'm a solution architect, work in federal government, but I started my life as a developer, right? And as a developer, I specialized in integration development relatively early on, which has been a good thing in terms of if you think about the patterns and how they relate to cloud-native development. We talk about loosely coupling, we talk about messaging, building services, and I was able, for a banking organization to build an iPaaS before it was a thing, for a large Australian retailer doing edge to headquarters integration, again, before it was a thing, which has been really good. And then applying that systems thinking to this topic, for me, what it means is I've got to balance off the need of the enterprise, around security, governance, and those sort of things with what I want as a developer. I want quick, easy, fast. I don't want to take time to do stuff, right? But when I say balance these things off, I also don't want to compromise. I want it all, basically, as a developer. And so that's what we'll talk about. Right? Well, first we'll explore the problem space at a bit of a higher level. We'll get into what it looks like when I'm building these apps, and then the Red Hat view of that, right? So as a developer, for me, oftentimes I feel like I don't grow up. I'm still playing Legos. I'm solving business problems using the building blocks that we have. And for us, those building blocks are the frameworks that we've learned over the years, the tools that we've got, and the knowledge that we've built up, right? And it used to be that business was happy with just that, I want to go from point A to B, give me that car. But now they want it faster, they want it sexier, they want that compelling user experience. And in the world of commerce, driven by shareholder value, driven by time to market, the world where I live in, it's driven by shrinking budgets and growing constituent requirements, right? People are used to a certain level of experience. So business wants it faster, they want it sexier, and they want it with bells and whistles. And when we say that, what we mean is they're looking for it to be AI ready. They want to have all this data there. They want the thing to be stable, secure. It's got to scale. It's got to do all of these things. And so as developers, where did we go to do that? What did we do, right? We've got business going more, faster, faster, faster. IT going, whoa, slow down. You can't go that quick. So we went to the cloud. That had all the answers for us, right? It's great. Low barrier to entry. I get stuff done quickly. It scales. The promise is there. But is it? Right? That's a photo that I've taken of Canberra and a thunderstorm there. And I think it relates really well. So we look at the Digital Transformation Agency, and they've got a cloud-first policy, right? So agencies and departments new development, new workloads have to go to the cloud unless you've got a really good reason not to. And as it happens in government, we have some really good reasons not to, right? We talk about security and all those sort of things. But also, it's not just a government thing. We look at that study from Forbes. A hybrid cloud is growing in the commerce world as well. Deutsche Bank presented at Summit earlier in the year, and they spoke about their multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environments and meeting developers and business where they are, allowing them to run where it makes sense. So if we look at what drives this, that is the federal cloud computing strategy from the US federal government. Now, the significant thing about that is that's the first change they've made in 7 years to their cloud strategy was this year. And they went from cloud first to cloud smart, right? And that's driven by security, right? Where is the appropriate place for this workload to run? If I'm in banking and finance, what are the privacy regulations that I need to comply to? Data, not just provenance, but also sovereignty. How do I look at those things and deal with those challenges? I look at procurement, right? Cloud is great. It's cheap to start off with, but does it really scale? Does that price scale? So I've got a customer that sort of worked out for them, I think it was 17 racks, where they go, anything beyond that, it's not cheaper to run in a cloud provider for them, right? So that's driven their sort of hybrid adoption. And then workforce. How do I retrain, reskill people? But it's not just retraining and reskilling, because I've got to retrain, reskill in different platforms, different providers, different environments. So I want to keep that consistent. Right, so as a developer, that's great if I've got a single set of tools to use, and as an ops person, doubly so. So if we combine all those things, we come up with a set of requirements or non-negotiables for this app environment. So on the enterprise side, security governance, I want to be able to apply that consistently across my environments. I want no lock-in, I want choice, right? So a lot of our customers in federal government are saying they don't want vendor lock-in. They want to be able to move wherever they want to move their workload. And now that doesn't necessarily mean bursting in the first instance, but literally just going from one cloud provider to another, right? Because it gives them commercial leverage. As a developer, as we mentioned, I want productivity, I've got to deliver more, I've got to deliver faster. I want the flexibility to work the way I want to work and the way I need to work, and solve the problems the way I need to solve them. And I want it quick and easy, that low barrier to entry. So I don't know about you, but I'm a super impatient developer. Right? If anything takes me more than 10 minutes trying to use a new service or downloading software and seeing something work, I'm out of there. Right? I move on to the next thing, see if that's going to solve my problem better. And that's the mindset that we're dealing with. So when we lift the hood a little bit under this thing, I normally talk to customers about that. Right? So that quote I'll put in front of customers, and there'll be a few people in the room sort of looking under their eyes, because there are people that's made a career out of writing code that never hits production, that never has an impact on anyone. And I can't think of anything more soul-destroying. So when we write code that has value, that's that red bit there, right? That's our code. That's what we want to focus on as developers. I want to just write that code. I don't want to think about, plumbing and things around that, but I need those things, right? And some of that the platform provides. So we're talking about containers and container worlds and Kubernetes, and I get some of that resilience and scaling for free, essentially, from the platform. But I've got to make decisions around logging, monitoring, how I do that, how I do tracing, how I assemble these packages or containers, what sort of pipeline tools I use as well. And then when I'm building in a cloud-native world, when I'm loosely coupling these things, right, I'm no longer embedding my workflow in my application. I've got to externalize that. So that becomes a service I want to use on the platform. I want my business rules externalized. And I'll take a side there just for a second. Externalizing the business rules in your application is probably one of the biggest value drivers I've seen in projects that I've been involved in. Right? The cadence of rule changes is almost always a lot faster than what you need to do in a technical terms in your application. So I'd encourage you to explore that. But then working in this agile manner, I've got product teams, they own their own APIs, so they want to do API management close to their application. I want to integrate. We heard Mandy talk earlier about Fuse and all the good stuff there to bring the old world and connect it with the new world, all the way through functions as a service. So where I'm talking about, maybe batch workloads, I want to scale down to 0. Or reconciliation workloads, same thing. Running those maybe once a day. I want to scale down to 0, run it when I need it. So after I've built all of that, what does it look like when I run it? Right, so now I'm running it across this environment, right, from on-prem to cloud or cloud to on-prem. And it would be nice if I had the same messaging backbone, a single set of APIs to talk to as a developer. I had the same caching mechanism, same sign-on mechanism, right? I'm building this thing once, running it everywhere, only works if that's consistent across these environments. Then I'm talking about my pipelines, so CI/CD, same thing. Those tools have plugins, they talk to different platforms, different environments. And then, GitOps is another topic that's coming up more and more, and I would encourage you, if you're starting on this journey, just pass CIOps, don't stop, right? Go straight to GitOps. And that's a big thing that our customers are looking at as well, because GitOps allows us to recreate those environments quicker, it allows us to audit those environments much better, but also gives us the ability to move to federation and actually run things across these cloud environments. So I'd encourage you to look at that and sort of Google that after the session. But our app doesn't live by itself. So what you've seen today, you've seen Service Mesh, you've seen Istio, and those things talking to each other and configuring that and having the ability to talk between clusters even, work's being done on the Istio level to enable that. And then on top of that, as a developer, I get the tools. I want the tools to make it easy for me, right? So that's one of the things that's driven me to OpenShift. We'll talk about that a bit later. So to build a platform that looks like that, there's lots of choices, right? If you were going to do this manually, or if you were going to use different Kubernetes distributions to do this, that's what you have to deal with. So that's the cloud native computing foundation and their chart on what it takes to build and run containers in production. There's a lot of choices there and a lot of things that you need to think about, that you need to integrate, that you need to test, that you need to make sure works if you want to do this yourself. Would be nice if someone's done that for us, right? So this is the marketing bit. But I think we've seen enough around the operators to understand the platform, the value of the operators on the platform, taking care of that for us at the OpenShift level. We talk about the code-ready stuff and the containers. It's on that side there. And an example of that and where I've used it is I needed to build a Spring Boot application recently, an API, on a machine that I didn't want to run Java on for various reasons. And the tools that I got with the platform enabled me to use the command line, create the container, get my Spring Boot starter app, push it straight into the container, and it's running, right, in minutes. And I start making my code changes, and the container just refreshes, restarts, reruns. So I can do that in a loop in an environment that looks like what it's going to look like in production without having to deal with Docker files and build files and all those things, right? So making me really, really productive as a developer, which is great. Then we talk about the runtimes. We spoke about those earlier. So that's the Quarkuses, the Javas, the Pythons, all of those things. But more importantly, having access to the tools that I need for cloud-native development. So things like AMQ, DataGrid, built into those packages, right? Built into that. Integration, which Mandy's spoken about, and how that works, packaged as a single thing. Same thing, operators coming to the fore there, right? I can stand up a Kafka cluster, 3 zookeepers, 3 brokers. So if anyone stood up a Kafka cluster manually, it's hard, it's a pain, I've got it, yeah, you know it. 2 minutes, right, it's up and running with the operators. It's a little bit insane. And people, when you show that to people, they think it's black magic. It's not real. You're sort of lying to them because of how hard it is in real life. And then process automation, where they bundle BPM rules, Optiplanner, and we've got the Intando app builder as part of that, just to get that process stuff going quickly, right? And orchestrating between these containers and running that, right? All so that you can focus on your code at the top. So I'll talk about IP Australia. They've been doing this for a while, and we've got a few of them in the room, so hopefully I'm getting this right. They spoke at Forum last year, and they presented, for them, the use case, a big part of it was moving to OpenShift, moving to containers. They got the density out of their infrastructure to get rid of a whole lot of servers, right? So they went down from, I think, 65 racks to 9 by using the whole platform. Just this weekend, they migrated between data centers without an outage because they could move the workload between those platforms. And you can see the cost savings there and the things that it means to that team, right? So they've gone from 6-week release cycles to daily, right? So this is a government department that is really showing the way in Canberra for how the stuff can be done and should be done. And now they're looking at more and more using AMQ. It's being used to enable those hybrid workloads, and using DataGrid as part of that, and looking at Decision Manager to sort of say, well, how do we break up this big monolith of a CRM solution that we've got and run some of those rules closer to the APIs, closer to the user, to speed up that experience and make that better. So exciting things happening there. So it turns out you can have it all. You can have your cake and eat it too, right? You can have security, you can have governance, As a developer, I can have a low barrier to entry. I can have a consistent way of doing things, talking to environments, talking to my logging, my monitoring, my caching, all these things I need, and I can deliver quickly to business, right? And I'll leave you with one final call to action, which for me, a big part of why I joined Red Hat was OpenShift. Right? I was playing around with containers and Kubernetes and doing those things, and I downloaded it, played with it, and I went from code to a running container that's production ready within minutes, and I went, this is pretty good. And I would encourage you to do the same. Get your hands on the tools, have a play, explore, and go and change the world. Thank you for your time.